On today's episode of the SBS podcast, we dive headfirst into massive wins over USC from the past week. First, covering the women and their Big Ten Championship redemption on Saturday, followed by men's absolutely pantsing the Trojans from the day before. We go through a bit of a regular season recap, talking best wins, worst losses, and top individual performances. And we finish the episode off with, of course, a look ahead at the Big Ten and NCAA tournaments as we are officially in March. That's all coming up next on the SBS pod. Off the bat, I just want to share the week that UCLA Athletics has had versus USC. So let's go back to last Sunday, March 3rd. Bruin baseball, as we all witnessed. Bruin baseball defeats USC 5-1 at Jackie. Is it Rock Chu? How do we say this guy's name? I want to get this one right. Rock, is it Chalowski?
Rock Chalowski.
Okay.
Yep, you got it.
Unbelievable baseball name. Tosses them the, two's down, V's down, what do we call that? Fight off?
Yeah, the fight off.
Okay, 6 days later after that, women's basketball also, of course, takes SC down while simultaneously winning the Big Ten Championship in their first year in the conference. So it doesn't get much sweeter than that. And then, of course, the following day, men's basketball beats USC by 27 points. And let me tell you, that score is not indicative.
Yeah.
UCLA, if they wanted to, could have won that game by 40 points. So far, great month to be a Bruin. So on that note, naturally, let's start with the ladies and give them their flowers. UCLA avenges the first two and only two losses of the season to USC by defeating them for the Big Ten Championship, 72-67. I mean, really right up until the second half of that game, it just sort of seemed like this is a total kryptonite team for UCLA. What was the biggest deficit, 13?
Yeah, and
somewhere around there.
It felt for a long time, especially in the first half, kind of like the game in Pauley where the ladies would bring it to within like 2 points, to within 1 point, and you're like, okay, like this is where we're gonna get one more stop, and then we're gonna hit a triple, or we're gonna get a bucket, and then like momentum is gonna shift, and then absolutely at that moment we would just lose, and then they go on another like 10-point run.
Yeah, and then Watkins, it was like whatever she had against UCLA, man, was working because I think 29 points total, at least 20 in the first half.
Yeah.
And then second half, Gabriela Jaquez, absolute clamps. Has defense always been that big of a strong suit for her? Because I was super impressed with the way she was able to square up, really kind of absorb stuff. Like, Juju loves going to the rack. She was just absorbing them with her chest, playing textbook D, and I was super impressed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she gets some toughness from her brother. That Jaquez gene probably has something to do with it. But she's a hustler. She played much of that game in foul trouble because she was guarding Juju, and then kind of turned it around in the second half, especially and in the fourth quarter, really shutting her down without fouling, which I think is huge when you look at the fact that she had 4 fouls going into the fourth quarter. I think.
I think she had 2 within the first 4 minutes of the game, and she sat most of the first half. And when you think about USC's runs in that first half, majority was with Gabriela on the bench, and then she plays the majority of the second half, and look what happened. So she's sort of our Kobe Johnson. I think she's the best defender on the women's team going into the postseason.
And before we get to the best part of this game, which I think was Lauren Betts, I think it's safe to say that. Need to acknowledge the turnover problem before the Bruins head in to March, because it felt like a 10 possession span. I think I was texting you guys where there wasn't a possession that ended in a rebound. It was either a basket being scored or a turnover. It went on for like 5 minutes of regulation. It was crazy. That's got to be cleaned up.
And then the other thing on the flip side of that is, I mean, first half, I think USC had more offensive rebounds than we had rebounds total.
We couldn't get a board.
We could not get a board to save our lives. Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. Was balls were bouncing 1 or 2 times on the floor when you're supposed to go up and pinpoint a rebound at the highest point. I personally, I sort of questioned, like, in that first half, like a lot of Bruins fans, like, do they want to beat USC? It almost looked like, girls weren't diving on the floor for loose balls. It was a little concerning. And then there must have been a talk at halftime. Corey Close just laid into these girls because it was a complete flip of the switch on the second half.
Yeah. And you kind of wonder how that's even possible, at least with the first half and how those rebounds went when you've got a player like Betts. Is Betts typically a good rebounder? Because she's got to be, the tallest player.
I think she averages like 14 rebounds, I want to say, something like that.
Just under 10.
Okay.
Well, speaking of Lauren Betts, how satisfying was it to see her? She was also doing the Rock Chalowski.
Yeah.
Rock Chalowski.
The fight off.
Yeah, I'll patent that one to him. She Chalowski'd the USC bench coming off the court. I mean, I feel kind of weird, like, talking shit about, like, women's sports as a dude. It just feels a little wrong. But, you know, it's equality.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, it was super satisfying to see Juju Watkins look all smug walking off the fucking court. Like, you know what? Fuck off.
Yeah, totally. I mean, women's sports.
It's about time.
Yeah, women's sports, men's sports. I'm going to treat every team that I'm a fan of the same way. I'm going to give the same criticism. I'm going to talk the same shit. So, it makes me feel good to see USC lose. Yeah,
babying women's athletes is sexist.
Yeah.
It is.
Exactly.
I'm going to talk some serious shit moving forward. Well, looking ahead for the Bruins in March, I figure they've got to be eyeing a number one overall seed. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're number one AP this week.
Yep.
So anyone got any insight into the situation who...
so Texas lost against South Carolina. Kyle noted, and he could talk more about that. So I think that dropped them from the previously number one spot and put us there. I mean, we're the winner of the Big Ten Conference with only two losses to the same team. And then we ended up avenging them.
And a 15-point win over South Carolina, too.
Well, the coolest part is that they get to play at home.
Yep, for the first two rounds, right?
God, that's sick.
Yeah.
I think that's so good. I wish the men's side would also adopt this. It would make for such good basketball and such good atmospheres around the country. I mean, we saw it with the college football playoffs with the first round being on campuses. It's so much better.
What's the argument against it? Why? There's got to be a reason why men sticks to the 100% neutral sites.
NCAA makes more money.
Yeah, they pay them. They pay the NCAA to host those games.
The sites.
I also bet you. I mean, this isn't. I'm not saying this goes into their into why they made that decision, but I bet you part of the reason you see so many one seeds go, not so many, but you see some of those top seeds go down early in the tournament. There's no home court advantage. Yeah. Like, had you been playing these games, all these protected seeds being at home, I bet you'd see far less madness early on in the tournament, which is, that's a good thing.
And you'd argue that also probably maybe more of a home court to the opposing lower seeds because the neutral fans always want an upset. And
that's true
for some of those fans of those lower teams who maybe make March Madness once every 5 years. They're more likely to travel to those games, so that also might add to that.
Yeah. Have you guys ever been to a March Madness game?
I haven't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Bruins?
Plenty. Of course. I traveled up to the game in Sacramento 2 years ago versus Northwestern. And then I went to Vegas. We
should get a soundboard and just saying boo-boo.
All right, dude, during the David Singleton episode, like, I think someone just mentioned, I don't even think anybody mentioned Northwestern. It was just, I was talking about that tournament, or somebody was talking about that tournament. I go, boo-booey.
But I'm hopefully adding two more. I've never been to a women's March Madness game. If the girls make it to the Spokane regional, I will definitely be in attendance. That's for damn sure.
Not to go back to men's too much, but speaking of that Northwestern game, was that not the game where David got hurt? I want to say he went down hard.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
what did that end up being? Did he blow? He played the rest.
I think it was an ankle.
But he played, though.
He played the rest of the tournament.
Yeah.
But it was just always kind of gingerly.
Yeah. That was the game. The first round, they smacked UNC Asheville. I don't know if you guys remember that game. Just
I do.
Obliterated them.
I remember being, for some stupid reason, so nervous for that game. And then, like, midway through, I'm like, I got to be a little real with myself sometimes.
I think 5 minutes into that game, Nuba had 10 points.
It was like one of those, like, uncomfortably large leads. It's like, okay, this is kind of sad.
Yeah.
But in conclusion, stoked to see the women now in the real dance with some serious momentum, and finally killed the boogeyman, it seems. They might see him, they would have to see him in the Final Four.
Final Four, probably, There's
no chance.
Probably in the national. I assume USC is going to be a 1 seed as well. They'll probably be the 3-1 seed.
Fourth.
Oh, you think fourth?
I've seen projections they'd be the fourth.
Okay.
I mean, there's no way the NCAA and all this East Coast bias would let South Carolina or Texas be the fourth.
It's crazy how though it's 2 SEC, 2 Big Tens.
Yeah.
For the ladies, but
could you imagine a national championship?
Bonkers.
I thought about it.
Wasn't that close to being possible last season?
UCLA lost to South Carolina, I want to say, in the Sweet 16
LSU.
in Columbia. Oh, LSU?
Wasn't it? Because didn't we lose to
UCLA
Angel Reese?
Lost to Angel Reese.
Oh, that's right. You're right. South Carolina was 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Well, best of luck to the ladies. And let's switch over to men's. And actually, before we dive headfirst into that USC beatdown, I know we all want to cover that. Kyle, you had an awesome idea of actually going around the horn and sort of like a season recap, sharing what we believe to be the best win, the worst loss, and the best individual performance of the year. So, Kyle, since it's your idea, I guess we'll start with you, pal.
All right, let's do it. Best win of the season. I had to go with getting the monkey off of our back. The Gonzaga home game at Intuit Dome, or neutral site, was a home game basically. But I think, I remember talking on the podcast that week of why the game was so important. One, for Cronin to finally beat Mark Few. Two, just for recruiting and fans to show up. Personally, I would go out on a limb to say that was probably the best environment I think any UCLA home atmosphere has been like this season.
Yep.
And it pretty much just stemmed from Ross. So we created it right here. But no, Bruins fans showed up. It was a great back and forth game in the second half. We shot, I think, 50% from three in that game. It started really slow and ugly too. So, but yeah, the Gonzaga win was a big one for me.
Dude, that game kind of restored faith in me that UCLA still has a fan base, and that the problem, kind of lies on like a campus management with the athletic department and Poly Pavilion type thing. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not saying that's not hugely problematic still, but at least there's, we were kind of reminded there is a foundation there if you create a draw, which Intuit Dome is, which the opponent was, because that was rivaling any Poly crowd we've had this year, or really anything since, call it Villanova.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely fun win. My turn. I've got USC at home, and there might be some recency bias there because USC is indeed shit. So the very essence of beating them isn't impressive, or why this is my top. First, obviously, just the satisfaction of beating USC, but in any sport, I'm going to keep calling that a 40-point win. That was not a 27-point win. We beat their asses by 40. I'm going to continue to run with that. I think you could make the argument that was the best Poly crowd of the year. I mean, maybe Michigan State would be a close second. But most importantly, man, Mick getting over that hump in sweeping USC.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's kind of shitty in year 6 that we're talking about this now, but I don't know if it's as important to other UCLA fans as it is to me, but in the first few years of Mick, that always just bothered the living crap out of me, that he just had this USC bug, or like a Boogie Ellis bug for that matter.
Really was a Boogie Ellis bug.
Dude,
he got us a lot.
That guy was a fucking pest. I'm so glad he's gone.
Him and Peterson.
We don't mention Drew Peterson on this podcast. But that, combined with that massive stroke of luck that it received elsewhere in the conference to make that win a clinch for a double bye. And, hey, if the Bruins make the Big Ten championship game or even win it, I think you're going to look back to that USC win and everything that surrounded that with the double bye as a serious momentum kickoff. So, a lot of factors there. A little bit of recency bias, but awesome win. Fucking awesome win.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you. Those are both huge wins. I was kind of seeing you guys put yours down. I was kind of drawn between two remaining ones. I'll say the one that I didn't pick first was Arizona in Phoenix. I know it was a little earlier in the season, but it's so satisfying, like you said, about USC, Ross, that just to beat Arizona in Arizona, it's so good.
Yeah.
And
did I say?
I was tied between those two.
Dude, what was cool is when I was looking at your guys' entries, it didn't really feel like people were just picking shit for the sake of
being different. Yeah,
good content.
Yeah.
You could honestly make the case for any three of those.
Right. But I'm going to pick, that's not my pick. My pick is going to be Michigan State at home. It's not only the highest ranking team we've beaten, it was a really good home court advantage, and it ended up being the win that gave us the tiebreaker to be the 4 seed.
Yep.
For a number of reasons, it was Magic Johnson was there, Kareem was there, so that was also a cool moment. I'll shout out Red Panda. My girlfriend loved the fact that Red Panda was performing at halftime.
The halftime show?
Yeah.
Dude, I gotta chill on the high anxiety halftime poly laps because I miss some quality halftime performances when I'm just like getting sweaty pits walking around the concourse looking for a hot dog.
It's actually so funny. There's a picture that I took of because Kareem and Magic took a picture together, and I took a picture of them taking a picture together because it's fucking dope.
Yeah.
And then my girlfriend also took a Snapchat picture of Red Panda, and then in the caption is covering the picture of Magic Johnson and Kareem and says, "Oh my God, can't believe UCLA got Red Panda."
Well, I will say, just on this topic, I'm surprised no one chose Prairie View.
Hey,
absolute whomping 30-point cover or something like that.
Kyle.
That was the biggest cover of my life.
Well, Kyle, you interrupted me. I was about to get into how Prairie View A&M was actually the number one, but I didn't want to ruin this segment for you. I don't want to rain on your little parade. But in all truthfulness, I think doing this little exercise with the best win thing sort of fucking highlights the season UCLA has had when it comes to playing good teams and just being rich with good wins.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even mention
Wisconsin.
Either Oregon win.
Yeah.
One of them being on the road where that's been
when they were ranked like 9th or something, right?
And it was a buzzer beater. Was that a walk-off at the buzzer?
I don't think it was a walk. Was it a walk-off? I think Oregon had a possession that they missed, but
it was virtually a walk-off.
Yeah.
Deep three on the road. We still didn't know if UCLA was truly
legit,
for real yet. In Oregon, we just
Glass
figured.
on Sunday.
What?
Glass on a Sunday.
Oh, the bank. Yeah, the bank is open.
Bank on a Sunday.
Bank on a Sunday.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with your cute terminology. But yeah, then the other Oregon game at home, which that was like a 30-point win.
Absolute whomping.
And then you
I
mentioned
think they were top 15.
Yeah.
At the time.
And then you mentioned Wisconsin, another big win. So, I mean, looking back, there were some serious lows, which were sadly, we should have done the lows first because this is too much fun talking about. Now we're just going to have to like humble ourselves with some of the worst losses. But against quad one opponents, if I'm not mistaken, UCLA is tied for third with most wins in the country.
Sounds right.
And yet somehow, are they ranked in the AP this week?
No, sir.
No, they're not.
We have 8 teams, I think. The top 8 in the Big Ten. 7 of them are ranked.
Could somebody pull up that? There's a tweet. That that's been floating around, and it's like
I believe it's the top 7 in the Big Ten, and 6 of them are ranked. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh,
no, 8. You're right.
There's only one that's not ranked, and it's UCLA. And UCLA's
the 4th place team.
Yeah, absurd. Who's beaten with 3 of those teams?
I've always kind of just gone along, kind of smiled and nodded to the West Coast bias thing and just kind of lived in my own bubble. But now that this year I've had a podcast and I've had to pay a little bit more attention and just look at the bigger discussion and the bigger picture in the country, it is absolutely objectively a thing.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, my God.
In every sport.
It's crazy, man. Yeah, and in football too.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
It's just they only care about Oregon because Big Daddy Phil Knight has their pockets lined up with, cash, and that's it. They could not give a shit. We've beaten every single... We have not lost.
Well,
the only Western team we lost to was fucking New Mexico.
It's like that... Was it a 5-game skid?
Pac-12 title, right?
Yeah.
It was a 4-game skid, 5 of 6, I think, losses. I think when that played out...
One of them being a couple. There was a couple of good losses in there, though.
Sure.
It was like Michigan was a good loss. Yeah. Maryland was a good loss.
On the road.
It's like that was some unforgivable sin in the eyes of the voters.
Yeah.
And I know it might sound just so completely silly to be bitching about this literally in March. Like, what does it really matter? And I don't really know if I've brought up this point on a previous episode, but like, does it matter with like seeding and all that? No, but I'll say again, like, what's UCLA's biggest non-AP wins and losses problem. It's getting fans to care. It's getting people to engage. And what is the AP good for? It's for selling matchups and like really that's really kind of all it is. It sells teams. It's like, oh, like if you're channel flipping, are you going to watch unranked UCLA versus like number 23 Wisconsin, or are you watching number 17 Oregon versus number like 11 Purdue? You know, it's just when you get screwed like that, I think in the long run it does matter. So
yeah, and it's not just the AP. There's a number of college basketball pundits who, if you release their like end of regular season top, 25s, I think Andy Katz is the only one who really has respected UCLA and put him at 19. But like you got like John Fanta, you have Joe Lenardi, has us at what, like a 7?
Seth Davis. Yeah.
Seth Davis.
We should invite Joe Lunardi onto the show just so I can hide a pie behind my chair and slam it right in his fucking fat, ugly face.
I want to... John Fanta has Drake, UC San Diego, SMC, Memphis, Louisville, all in his top 25. No mention of UCLA.
Yeah,
that's absurd.
John Fanta's a joke.
I was gonna be the first to mention that Drake is one of the best teams in the country.
Off the cuff.
What the hell?
He has St. John at 5.
Insane, dude.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next segment, we've got worst loss of the season. Kyle, back to you, man. There's only one answer.
Yeah.
Here.
I really think there's 2, and I'm surprised no one else picked this other one. I'll say it when we're done here.
North Carolina. Yeah. But go.
That was the second worst loss of the season. The Minnesota game was by far, and I think we all agree across the board, was the worst loss of the season. Just so much. I mean, we'll go back to the free throws, but Adimara probably playing less than 15 minutes, maybe less than 10 in that game, I'd like to say. But just really just a full collapse down the stretch, missing free throws, not getting stops. And you're at a point in the season too. I think we had 5 games left. You had Penn State, Minnesota, SC, the Purdue and Northwestern. You beat Minnesota, and you're riding, taking a look at it now, we somehow, with all the help in the world, got the 4th seed and the double bye. But at that point, that Minnesota loss really derailed any sort of hope of getting it on our own. And I mean, just purely metrics-wise, Minnesota is just a horrible loss to have on your resume with, plenty of other ones. You look at Rutgers, Nebraska. I think that's where really our seed of that sort of 6-7 line is really kicking us in the ass and biting us in the ass with those just shit losses.
Yeah, it's one of those losses that kind of molds your lens, if that makes sense, for the rest of the year. Like every time we'd win a game after Minnesota, it was like, oh, could you imagine if that Minnesota loss didn't happen? Yeah. Like we're just in such a better discussion when it comes to seeding the Big Ten tournament. Thank God that worked out, but point still stands. And yeah, dude, it actually is crazy that none of us put North Carolina, because that game was really just Minnesota light.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I think it's probably because North Carolina is just more of a basketball name than Minnesota, even though they had an equally fucking terrible season.
Horrible. They had one quad one win this
exactly.
year, I want to say.
God, neither.
Was it us? It was us, right?
it was us. CBS primetime, MSG. I think, like, if you're looking at, like, a larger scale, that game is probably more of a worse loss if you're just looking at purely scale of, 2 brands on national television in Madison Square Garden. But down the Big Ten, stretch, obviously the Minnesota one means a lot more.
Yeah.
I had to drive home to Pasadena after the North Carolina loss, which is, what was it, on a Sunday?
Yeah.
Sunday game? That's like about 45, 50 minutes. That was the most quiet, radio off, death gripping the wheel, just reflecting, looking straight ahead in the car.
You punishing yourself, Ross?
Dude, alone with my thoughts after that game, like...
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. I've got my notes. Any other answer but Minnesota is wrong, but I'll go Michigan. Okay, Michigan. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. You've got the night of the fires. That's when that started.
Yeah.
I remember
you had people leaving the stands.
Well, I had to go outside to call my parents. My buddy Joe, who I was watching the game with, his house is in Eaton Canyon.
Yeah. Speaking
of the Eaton fire, the fact that Joe's house made it is unbelievable. But that was kind of lingering. It felt so shitty outside with the wind, and you could fucking see the glow like a mile away. So that was already kind of ruining the vibe. And then we just got absolutely trounced in what I think was the biggest crowd of the year was the UCLA Michigan game. So got totally spanked on our own court. And then you've got Mick after the game. That was I think the press conference game, was it not?
That was.
So just bad vibes. I think that it might not be the worst loss of the season, but that's the most bad vibes game of the season was Michigan.
That game, there was a stretch of like 15 minutes where we could not miss the basketball. We were down by like 15, and then we ended up being up by like 7 at one point.
There was the comeback.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, this team, and like
it was rocking.
Paulie was loud. It was rocking. The players were into it. I was like, oh my god, we just came back from double-digit deficit to through 2 halves. Like it was the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half, and then like you saw the biggest glaring issue of this team, and it was just there was a lid on the basket, and we could not stop them. But yeah, that was a tough loss. Okay, I guess I'll go with mine. I agree with you, Ross. I also put like arrows to say that any other thing but the Minnesota game is wrong. I skipped over UNC as well. I put Nebraska, which at the time didn't seem as bad because they had a crazy home court streak. I think it was the longest streak at the time of home court wins in the country. But looking back on it, I think they only have like 7 conference wins. They're not very
horrible.
Good. Yeah, it's that we should have won that game. It shouldn't have been a loss. I mean, Rutgers isn't equally in that same vein where like we shouldn't have lost. I was just, after your guys' picks, I was like, I'm just going to pick something that we should have won, an on-the-road win that would have been a quad 1, end of quad 1, quad 2 win that would have just really boosted the resume, and especially on the road in the Midwest or East Coast against those AP voters to actually really see in their backyard.
Is Rutgers not a shittier loss than that? Rutgers? Aren't they like third to last in the conference?
I think Nebraska's worse. They lost their last 5 down the stretch.
Holy shit!
They went from probably like a 10 seed in the dance to not completely out. Yeah. And they didn't even make the big. Or no, they're in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Tournament. But they also have some big wins. Not only us, but they also beat Illinois and Oregon.
They didn't make the Big Ten tournament.
Oh,
they
wow.
missed.
Jeez.
They didn't make the Big Ten tournament. But I will say
Nebraska missed the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, they missed it.
So it's them and Penn State.
And Washington.
Penn State and Washington.
Okay, so 3 teams don't make it. Yeah. Got it.
3 teams. Got it. I will defend this loss just a little bit, Keon.
Sure.
Just because we didn't have Daly.
Yeah.
We had no Daly in that game for whatever reason. And I was thinking about this loss over the weekend. We had a really good season with just avoiding an injury bug. Like
knock on wood.
Knock on wood, but I'm shocked that hasn't been brought up on the show.
That's a great point.
Well,
it's one of those things you don't think about, and it's like a good thing when you don't think about it.
We missed Daly for maybe a game or 2, but outside of that, I mean, we had this
Mara norovirus.
We had the norovirus hit us, but the team's been healthy, and just crossing your fingers it stays that way throughout March, because these are definitely going to be some intense matchups.
Really quickly, going back to the Nebraska game, I changed my mind. Yeah, that might be my personal worst loss of the season because it was close at halftime.
Yeah.
It was a 1-possession game at the half, and then I told my buddy, we were sitting on that couch right there, I said, okay, I'm going to speed over to Chipotle. I just ordered online, and I ordered double chicken with like queso, like just a dank ass bowl. And I drove over to Chipotle, and I'm like, hey, pick up for Ross. And he's like, I don't have one for Ross. And I checked the app, and it was on the complete opposite direction. And I knew I was going to be cutting it close. I'm like, fuck. So I drove over to the other location, which has the worst parking lot on earth. As I'm listening to 570, the second half has started. The game's already started to get away from us. So my mood is deteriorating. Literally every 30 seconds, it's dropping a whole level. I get my food. I make it back. It's like halfway done through the second half, and we're down like almost by double figures.
Yeah.
I open the bowl, and I fucked up. I fucked up the app somehow. I got no double meat, no queso, no guac. It was like chicken, rice. It's like what you would feed a horse. I was like, and then I'm not even lying. I went to go get my sriracha bottle to kind of try to save this. I don't know if I squeezed it too hard out of anger or if it had just like kind of collected towards the top of the bottle, but half the bottle just exploded into the bowl, and it ruined it. I literally threw it in the trash and laid on my bed and didn't watch the rest of the game. So
what a nightmare.
I agree with you, Keon.
Yeah.
Okay. Best individual performance of the season. Kyle, start us off once again.
Best individual performance. I'm going to go with Eric Daly at home versus Oregon. The game, Oregon came in 16th in the country. And we blow him out by 29. He just could not miss that night. He was 8 for 9 from the field, 3 for 3 from 3, 21 points. And, he seems to sort of catch fire like that at times and, just have nights where, and I think it was more for me, the baskets, the buckets he made. I mean, there was Sebastian Max sort of late in the shot clock, rush, pass across court. He goes between the legs, step back, basically fade away 3. And that was after he had, it was basically a heat check, fade away 3. Yeah. Crowd goes nuts. He had a big dunk in there on an outlet pass from Mara, I want to say, later in the game. So I think just, when Daly gets to his spots, that lefty stroke, it really reminds me just a little bit of Amari Bailey, obviously much larger in stature, but having that lefty, there's something about a solid lefty stroke that just is visually much more appealing to me in a basketball game. But, Eric Daly, he's going to come up on this again.
Yeah.
He's probably my,
player of the season?
If we were doing a player this season. Yeah, Eric Daly.
Is he a lock to come back next year? Or is there, Amari Bailey I thought would be a lock and he wasn't. So I think it's kind of just to start praying that he comes back type situation or that he doesn't go. It's kind of like how UCLA couldn't kill USC by too much.
Yeah.
Let's hope he only goes off so hard in March.
Kind of I think there's two things you got to worry about these days. You got to worry about transfer, NBA, and then you also got to worry about just
the transfer.
Like who goes to say that like in Auburn, who's probably got a solid war chest now in
Alabama,
wasn't like, yeah, let's just go after this Eric Daly guy. Sort of have a very similar last name too. But yeah, just a couple things you got to worry about. I really, really, really hope that the girth of this team. I don't know if that's the right weird, strange word choice.
I too have heard through very reliable sources that this UCLA team has some serious girth.
They need to stay together. That's what I was trying to get to.
And that actually brings us to our next. That brings us to our next segment.
You got to pay for that segment, by the way. Join the OnlyFans.
No. We got to go back to one of my first memes ever with the original SBS account, SBS After Dark, for only $49.99 a month.
Steal.
All right, my top individual performance of the season. Give me Adai Mara versus Wisconsin. 22 points, perfect field goal percentage at 100%, 7 for 7. That was just sort of the game that birthed Dunk Suidad. That birthed Mara Mania. I was there for that one. Wisconsin fans were exceptionally annoying. Wasn't expecting that. And that kind of brings us to where we're at now with UCLA fans just clamoring for more Adai. We want more Mara minutes, and it all started there. We always knew he had high potential, and he was a highly touted get. But that was the game where it's like, oh, shit, what have we been doing this whole time? Because it was literally just feed him. Wisconsin pissed their pants, and it was a Mara dunk. There's a reason he went 7 for 7 in that game. It was just a complete domination under the bucket. And that was an easy one for me. My mind went straight to that one.
Yeah, that was my, when we came up with this segment, that was my original pick. Just because, exactly like you said, it sparked so much for the rest of the season in terms of a pivotal moment. That was when we were like, okay, this is a different Adai Mara than we saw last season, and this could be a real X factor coming off the bench for this team. Speaking of guys who we want to come back next year, I think I'm not going out on a ledge at all. and saying that I think all UCLA fans want Adai to come back and to be a real part of this team.
Men of Westwood should make like a just be very transparent. These donations go to the Adaimar Return Fund.
Yeah, retention.
I mean, shit.
Yeah, I'd be contributing to that. I genuinely think, I think I said it on the podcast, that one step through, pump fake, return with the left, slam, where he sort of mugged the guy. That was the play, I think, where he was like, a light bulb clicked, and he's like, holy shit, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, this is, I can play here, I can do this. And then, he had a play where he was just holding the ball one-handed out on the post, gives it a little hook. So he's a stud.
Yeah.
He's an absolute stud.
Yeah. I want somebody on Twitter, on the UCLA Burnerverse Twitter, to put together a season highlight reel of Adai.
I'm on it.
Yeah.
UCLA.
I just want to. That's something I want to have bookmarked for those late nights on SBS After Dark.
UCLA Burnerverse is something. Do you guys know is it BG? DG? I'm almost like afraid to bring him up on this podcast.
I might.
His profile picture is like a UCLA football mannequin. This guy, I don't know if he's on drugs.
Maybe it's the Irish guy.
He's been banned like multiple times. I really should unfollow him. I'm following him on the SBS account, and it's me and one other guy. And because all of his responses or his replies come up in my feed, and it's like a car crash. You just can't look away.
You just gotta watch.
And saying things that I'm so not repeating, while like lacing these tirades with like pro UCLA sports takes. It's one of the oddest things I've ever seen. Have him on the pod, yeah, sure.
Bringing it back to Adaimara, my second request to the UCLA community was if you're one of the 14% of women who listen to this podcast, we need Adaimara to have a girlfriend on campus if he doesn't already. So that's a very easy way in the transfer,
lock him up. Lock him up.
Well,
era
you guys,
to lock up players.
You guys didn't even give me a chance to announce the next SBS business initiative, and that's our dating app.
It's The Bachelor.
Yeah.
but just for Adaimara.
All right. Someone's got to go next.
I think this is me. Mine was Eric Daly versus USC over the weekend. Might be recency bias, but guy was a walking bucket. 25 points. He ended up having 5 boards and also 3 steals on the defensive end. So, I mean, it was just a belt to ass whooping game, sort of thing. But Eric Daly is one of those players, kind of like an Amari Bailey, kind of like a Johnny Juzang, where if he gets hot at the right time, you want the ball in his hands to win the game. And in March, where you're going to have a lot of tight games in the conference tournament and into the NCAA tournament as well, you want the guy to have confidence in his shot and be eager to have the ball in his hands at the tough times.
Some of those threes that he had in the second half, man, when UCLA was just on a run.
Yeah.
It's like they just kept coming. Oh, it was beautiful. Yeah. Being there, I was the only one of us three that was there.
Yep.
Holy shit. There couldn't have been more than 30 USC fans there.
Good.
There were
poverty-ass fucking school.
My favorite thing about this game, I don't know if you guys saw Eric Musselman's clip after the game, where he goes, now that's a home court advantage.
Yeah.
I'm clipping that and saving that for the rest of time. That is the ultimate thing to have in your back pocket.
He shouldn't have said that. We're never going to let that go.
Nope.
No.
Especially with how much shit we talk about our fans and them being bad at being a home court advantage. That's just like, dude, that's like you just gave me water in the middle of the Sahara.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's final segment, second to last segment. UCLA men's basketball destroys USC. Final score 90-63. 40-point win. And like you guys said,
Ross wasn't a math major.
Absolutely belt to ass. It was fantastic. There was nothing wrong with the game. I mean, where do I start?
I mean, you're right, Ross. Like, there's just so many good performances. We had 5 guys in double figures. Sky Clark. I think this was probably one of Sky Clark's best games of the season for me. If we can get he shot 70%, and he shot 50% from 3, with 6 assists to go along. I think this game for me just sort of, I think we all knew this, that Sky Clark is the best guard that we have on the team, and Dylan Andrews, if we can somehow just sort of get him to play in a supporting role. I mean, Dylan Andrews, as a point guard, yes, he's struggled offensively in shooting this year, and maybe too many turnovers at times, but he dishes the ball out very, very well still, and he does find a lot of pockets and a lot of assists. So if DA can be that more distributor, Sky Clark can be that guard that's going to take most of the shots, and then you have a hot Bilodeau, hot Daly, hot Mara. I mean, this team is going to be dangerous, and I think we saw what they could do in March in this game versus SC. Defense was on point, offense was on point. I mean, like you said, Ross, I think the only thing that you can nitpick is we got out rebounded, but I didn't think that's because we made so many shots. There was not
a lot of rebounding
a whole lot to board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you got a rivalry game at home, and you're able to bring in a Jack Seidler in the final 2 minutes. I don't think you need to look much further than that. Was that everybody? Is that everybody played this game? The entire healthy roster? Am I missing anybody?
Are some of the walk-ons hurt?
Yeah.
There are?
Yeah, I think one of them is hurt.
Oh, okay. Well, then in that case, I think there's a good chance.
I think that was everybody who's, was available on the day played.
Played 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, that's huge. It showed the depth that UCLA has. I think that's kind of one of the things that Mick's talked about and we've talked about. Everybody pretty much did well, Maybe Trent was the only guy who I could have wanted a little more out of, especially when everybody's so hot, but he's 18. Your game's already away. You've already won it those minutes that he's having. So I don't want to nitpick too much on this, but yeah, Ross, I want to know more about how the crowd was at Pauley.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, all aboard the Must Bus, baby. I am so in on Eric Musselman. Let's fucking go.
Extend him. Give him an extension.
Absolutely fantastic first year for the Must Bus. I am on board. As it pertains to the crowd, it was good. Given everything that transpired that morning with the students trying to get in, you sure would hope that it was as big as it was. And it was. The den was absolutely filled all the way up to the top. My only gripe is that no one wore the shirts.
No, the free shirts.
And they were cool shirts.
Oh, that sucks.
And in the past, when UCLA has done the blue outs, people wore them. But this time, I don't know why. I mean, I literally didn't find one person wearing the blue shirt.
Were people wearing blue, though?
Yeah, but everybody normally wears some kind of blue to begin with.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of one of the things I've noticed, though. It's people don't always wear blue.
Well, the thing about UCLA has too many shades of blue in its merchandise. And this is okay, look at Texas. There's one shade of orange. If you go to the Texas
bookstore,
or even let's bring up SC. There's one shade of
Cardinal.
red.
Yeah.
So you go into their bookstore, they are selling one shade of red. You go to UCLA, you go to Ackerman, there's 90. It's like the full spectrum of blue is in there. So
you have the powder blue, you have navy, you have the Nike royal blue, you have.
Yep, because the blue has darkened over the years. It's shifted around. So when you get everybody wearing blue, but it's it's not this uniformed, you look at Illinois and everyone's in that bright orange.
Indiana with the red, yeah.
So that's actually what, fun fact, that's what Under Armour tried to tackle when they became UCLA's provider. OG fans know that they shifted the navy script on the football helmet to a light blue one. That's an example of Under Armour trying to what's the term? Uniformize?
Make it consistent.
They tried to, get it.
Unify,
not uniformize.
Girth?
Under Armour tried to girth up and unify.
What an episode for the SAT words.
Shut the fuck up. Under Armour attempted to unify the UCLA shade of blue. And I don't think it was all too successful, but I think their mind was in the right place in that they refused to sell. I mean, if you look at Under Armour products, there was no navy. There were no alternate uniforms that had navy or black. Everything was the same shade of blue. And I think that was probably a smart move, but I think that requires 10, 20 years of practice for that to actually show in a crowd. As of right now, we've got a blue little rainbow throughout our crowd. But fucking whatever, dude. Great crowd. I don't think it was sold out, which is crazy, but all things considered with where we've been at throughout the season and us finishing third to last. It was a third to last or second to last? Third to last.
Third to last.
In the Big Ten in attendance, I think Saturday's crowd was fantastic. So shout out to UCLA Nation for showing up. Especially shout out to the students. The athletic department is not making your guys' experience any better whatsoever, yet you guys showed up and were loud and good. So I give it a B+. B+. But anyways, looking ahead, UCLA plays this Friday in the Big Ten tournament. Mikal, break it down for us.
Yeah. Well, I know we already talked about getting that double bye. I think it's going to be big for us. I mean, you don't want to play 4 games, you'd rather play 3 games to get to the final. But when you look at just the bracket, I think when it first came out, you look at it and you think to yourself, our path to the championship game is all teams that we've beaten.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing that jumps out at me. The bottom half of the bracket is all teams that we've lost to. So I will say that Michigan State is a different team at this point in the season than when we play them. But we've beaten Wisconsin. We've proved that we can, are the same caliber or same echelon and can play with Michigan State. The only thing that sucks about the Big Ten tournament is this is a fact that Bruin fans aren't going to travel as well as any of the other teams that will be facing home crowds.
No chance.
And that's something, no chance. So that's something that they're going to have to deal with. I mean, you play Wisconsin on, Friday afternoon. I think it's at 11:30 a.m.
It's going to be a home game for the Badgers.
It's going to be a home game for Wisconsin. 11:30 a.m. tip, by the way, too. I don't know what I'm going to have to tell my work. I'm just going to need to check out for 2 quick hours. But
doctor's appointment.
I'll be driving up to Mammoth.
Yeah, that's true. We will be.
How many? You guys got a Mammoth season pass or something? You guys are always there.
So win 1 and we're a 6. Do you think? Just win 1 game, beat Wisconsin, presumably. Let's say it's Wisconsin.
I think we're a 6 regardless.
I think we'll be a 6 regardless.
Even if we don't lose. Okay.
I think just at the end of if it's Wisconsin and we lose to them, I think we're a 6 regardless. I think it's a good loss. It's Wisconsin's probably going to be a 3.
And who's Wisconsin playing in the first?
Northwestern.
So lose to Northwestern.
Winner. They play the winner of Northwestern, Minnesota.
You didn't consider the fact that Northwestern could beat Wisconsin, then beat us.
It's Northwestern's run to the Big Ten championship.
Okay. We are really playing with some serious voodoo fire here.
Yeah.
We are just so smugly laughing, but this is a team that took us down to the fucking wire.
No, well, Minnesota could beat fucking Northwestern. Minnesota. Who's the cat on Minnesota's team?
Garcia.
I don't want. But what
Dawson
is it?
Garcia.
Dawson Garcia. I don't want to talk about Dawson Garcia. Okay, make the title. Make the title game.
I think we could be a 5.
Could be a 5. Win the title game.
I think we'd still. Our ceiling's a 5.
Ceiling's a 5.
No, we'd be a 4. We'd have another 3 quad 1 wins.
Wow.
Come on, baby.
If we have 12 quad 1 wins and we are a 5 and up, I will lose my mind.
I'm storming the Capitol
Yeah.
if we don't. No, I'm literally getting pitchforks and going straight to DC if UCLA is not a 4 seed after winning the Big Ten title.
Yeah. Where's it?
Who's with us?
Yeah.
I think we're really kind of banking on people not sticking with us an hour deep into the episode.
Pitchforks into the White House.
Anything else, boys? Anything else you guys want to touch on?
Sky Clark returning.
Sky Clark is returning. That's confirmed.
Ben Bolch talking tweets.
That's confirmed by Sky Clark himself talking to Ben Bolch, saying that he's very happy in Westwood. Clearly, the mean words from Mick didn't get to him, and he's coming back a Bruin next year, which is awesome news.
Yeah, and if you could have him, and then Adai Mara at starting at the 5.
If
Let's
you
not get
return
carried
all
away.
These guys, no. The men of Westwood is going to have their work cut out for them, because if you can somehow return all these guys, and I know that that's a stretch in this day and age, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this team better be in the Final Four next season.
Yeah. Well,
this team feels. Sorry, yeah, I know we're trying to wrap it up, but this team feels it feels a lot like that team the year that the COVID happened. Like you kind of expect them to be okay, they did well. I think this team, I wouldn't say overperformed or underperformed. I think they performed well, as we all said with our grades. But it really feels like, if this group can keep some of the core pieces into next year, this could be really something special.
Now we just need COVID to come back.
Yeah. No, jeez.
No, please no.
All right.
All right.
Wrap it up.
We're going to wrap it up. Thanks as always for tuning in. It is our pleasure to deliver you the greatest UCLA sports content you can find anywhere. And that's right here on the SBS podcast, boys. Thank you for hopping on. And next week, we'll be discussing how UCLA wins the Big Ten tournament in its first year in conference, just like the ladies.
Let's go.
Go Bruins.
Go Bruins.
Happy March.
Boom. Go Bruins.
Bye.